The preacher's daughter had been missing for 3 days when he rode into town. His horse was lean and quiet, his coat patched but clean. He carried no rifle, just a long-barreled revolver with a worn handle and the kind of silence that made lawmen uneasy. The town of Red Morrow was small and suspicious, the kind of place where folks didn't ask questions unless they already knew the answer. But when the man tied his horse outside the saloon and walked into Sheriff Boyd's office, without knocking, things started changing fast. "You Boyd?" he asked. The sheriff looked up from his desk. "That's right. And you are?" The man didn't sit. "I'm here about the girl." Boyd's jaw tightened. "We've got men searching." "No," the man said. "You've got men pretending." That got the sheriff on his feet. "Now hold on. She's not in the canyon, not at the river. She's not with the Comanche, and she didn't run off." The man leaned forward, voice low. "She's been taken." Boyd squinted. "And how would you know that?" The man reached into his coat, pulled out a scrap of red cloth. Torn, bloodied. "She dropped this near Bitter Hollow." The sheriff paled. "You're lying," he said. "No one goes near Bitter Hollow. Not anymore." "I do," the man said, then turned and walked out. Bitter Hollow was a dead scar in the land. Trees didn't grow there. Rivers avoided it. Folks said it was cursed since the mines collapsed and took 30 men with them. Others said the curse came long before that. The man rode alone, wind curling dust around his boots as he passed the last fence post on the edge of Red Morrow. In the saddlebag was a name: Lillian Ash, age 17, daughter of Preacher Clay. Last seen near the chapel the night the thunder rolled in. He'd seen signs others missed: torn grass, broken twigs, blood too dark to be from coyotes. She was alive, but not for long. By sundown, he reached the edge of the hollow. Old mine shafts yawned open like mouths mid-scream. Bones of wagons rusted beneath the cliffs. And there, near the base of the canyon wall, smoke, a fire, a camp. He dismounted silently, revolver in hand. 2 men sat near the flames, dirty, laughing, drunk on something that smelled like whiskey and cowardice. One of them had something in his coat pocket, a necklace, small, silver, a cross. He knew it was hers. The man from Bitter Hollow raised his pistol. "You've got one chance," he said. They both froze. "Where's the girl?" The 2 men at the fire reached for their guns, but too slow. Bang, bang. The shots echoed off the canyon walls like thunder returning home. One dropped face first into the dirt. The other staggered, clutching his shoulder, blood spilling through his fingers. He gasped, eyes wide as the man approached. Calm, methodical, revolver steady. "She's in the mine," the wounded man cried. "We didn't hurt her, I swear. Kane just said to keep her quiet." "Kane?" the man asked. The outlaw nodded, panicked. "Jonas Kane. Said the preacher owed him. Said if she vanished, no one would ever find her in that place. He pays us. Crack. The man pistol whipped him hard. The outlaw slumped, unconscious. He moved quickly after that, tying the man's hands and tossing him beside the wagon. Then he turned toward the mouth of the mine, black, silent, and swallowing the last of the sun. He lit a lantern and drew a second revolver from his saddlebag. Then he went in. The mine air was cold, heavy. It smelled like old sweat and older ghosts. Moved down the shaft, slow and silent, every step echoing through the timbers. Dust drifted in lazy spirals. The deeper he went, the more the walls whispered. Old names, old debts. Then he heard it. A cough, a sob, and a voice, faint. "Please, someone." He followed it down a narrow split in the rock, ducking under a half-collapsed beam. There, in a small side chamber lit by a dying lantern, was Lillian Ash. Her dress was torn at the sleeve, her face bruised, but her eyes, wide and green, were fierce. When she saw him, she flinched. "It's all right," he said gently. "I'm here." Who are you?" "I'm no one that matters," he said. "But your father sent me." She stared. He sent someone?" He nodded. "Come on, we're going home." He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he lifted her gently, careful of her leg, bruised, maybe broken. They moved toward the exit, she whispered. "They said no one would come." "They were wrong," he said. They were almost to the entrance when the shot rang out. The lantern shattered in his hand, plunging them into darkness. Voices echoed from the shaft ahead. 3 men, one of them shouting, "He's in there! He's got the girl!" Jonas Kane had arrived. The man crouched, heart steady. He whispered to Lillian, "Stay down, don't move." She clung to the rock wall. Then he stood and fired into the dark. One shot, two, three. A scream. A body fell. The others returned fire blindly. The mine lit up with gun flashes. He moved left, using the walls for cover. Dropped another man with a shot to the chest. Then a voice. Deep, cold. "You've got guts coming here, Hollow Man." The man knew that voice. Jonas Kane. The reason the Ash family lived in fear. The one who buried debts in graves and called it justice. "I've come for the girl," the man called out. "No," Kane replied. "You came for yourself, and you'll die with nothing." A pause. Then, "We'll see." The mine tunnel trembled with the echo of gunfire. Dust fell from the rafters like warning ash. The man from Bitter Hollow crouched low, breath even, revolver warm in his hand. Jonas Kane's voice drifted through the dark. Calm, confident. "You know what happens now, don't you?" Kane called. "You die. She disappears. And the preacher keeps praying to a god that won't answer." The man didn't respond. He didn't have words for men like Kane, just bullets. He edged along the wall, reaching a junction where two tunnels split. Then a boot scraped stone nearby. He waited, then struck. Kane's second man rounded the corner with a lantern. Too bright, too slow. Crack. A single shot dropped him before he could scream. The lantern crashed beside him, flames licking across. Spilled oil. The tunnel roared with firelight. That was when Kane stepped into view, rifle raised, face half lit by flame. Tall, broad, clean-shaven like a politician, but his eyes were those of a killer. "You've got grit," he said. "I'll give you that." The man didn't reply. Kane took a step forward. "But you ain't the first to come crawling out of Bitter Hollow thinking you're owed something." "I'm not owed anything," the man said, raising his revolver. "But she is." They fired at the same time. Kane's rifle cracked with thunder. The man's revolver barked twice. Smoke filled the shaft. Kane stumbled back, roaring. A shot grazed the man's side, burning hot, but he didn't fall. Kane dropped his rifle, gripping his leg, hit high in the thigh. Blood bloomed across his trousers. He reached for a derringer at his boot, but the man was already there. Boot to Kane's wrist, revolver to his skull. Kane hissed, eyes wide. "You don't have the guts." The man cocked the hammer. "You know who I am?" Kane blinked. Then recognition flickered in his face. "No, you're dead. They said you died in that fire." The man leaned in. They were wrong. Crack. The shot echoed through Bitter Hollow, and the ghosts quieted. He found Lillian still huddled by the rocks, her eyes wide with the glow of fire from the spreading lantern flame. "Is it over?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes." Then he carried her out. By dawn, he rode back into Red Morrow with Lillian in his arms. Jonah Kane's body was tied over a second horse, lifeless. The townsfolk watched in silence as he passed, some in awe, some in shame. Preacher Clay ran from the chapel, weeping as he took his daughter. Quieter still was Sheriff Boyd, who tipped his hat low and didn't meet the man's eyes. "You were right," Boyd muttered. "We pretended." The man said nothing. He turned to leave. Clay stepped forward. "Wait, what's your name, son? At least let us thank you proper." The man paused, looked back. "Names don't matter," he said softly. "But next time someone cries for help, make sure it ain't a stranger who hears it first." He mounted his horse and rode west. The wind followed him, and Bitter Hollow was silent again. The wind hadn't even finished scattering the dust from his departure when the whispers began. "They say he's dead." No, they say he was dead. The Hollow doesn't give back the living. Back in Red Morrow, the preacher's daughter was safe, but the town didn't feel healed. Not yet. Kane might have been buried, but the roots of his power ran deeper than anyone wanted to admit. And the man who brought justice? He hadn't gone far. 2 days' ride west. He sat beneath a mesquite tree sharpening his knife when a rider approached. Dust cloud, fast gait, urgent saddle work. The rider pulled up hard, out of breath. "You the one they call Hollow Man?" The man didn't look up. "Sometimes." The rider dismounted, fumbling with his satchel. "This came from Red Morrow. Preacher sent it. Said it was found in Kane's saddlebag." He tossed a bundle. Inside, a ledger, blood-stained. Pages torn. Names. Lots of names. Judges, marshals, sheriffs, ranch owners, payments, routes, shipments. Not gold, not cattle, people, children, runaways, prisoners, no one missed. The man's jaw tightened. One name was circled in black ink. Boyd, the sheriff. That night, the Hollow Man returned to Red Morrow. He didn't ride in at dawn or under a badge. He walked, and people felt it in their bones. The church bell rang once, not for prayer, for reckoning. Sheriff Boyd stood on the saloon porch, hat in hand, eyes already defeated. "I didn't know it all," he muttered as the man approached. "Just a little. I thought if I didn't ask, I couldn't be blamed." "You took his money," the man said. "I took silence," Boyd replied. "And now I hear it every time I close my eyes." The man stopped 3 feet away, hand near his gun. "Then what now?" Boyd looked out at the townsfolk gathering. "I can stand and draw, or I can kneel and speak." The Hollow Man said nothing. Boyd dropped his badge in the dirt and went to the gallows himself. By morning, the town of Red Morrow wasn't what it was. The preacher rang the bell again. Not for death, but truth. And the Hollow Man? He stayed. This time he didn't ride away, because Cain's ledger held more names, and justice, once awake, doesn't sleep easy. The Hollow Man moved through Red Morrow like a shadow that had finally decided to stay. But he didn't go to the saloon, didn't take a room, didn't speak unless spoken to. Instead, he took up quiet residence in the old blacksmith shed behind the church, boarded windows, rusty tools, and just enough roof left to keep the rain off. Every morning, he opened Cain's ledger. Every night, he added notes. Lines connected names, routes traced across the territory. It wasn't just Red Morrow. Cain's operation had reached into Caro Junction, Denton Hill, Hollow Creek, and even as far west as Yuma Crossing. What he'd built wasn't a gang, it was a trade, and the Hollow Man knew it wasn't done. One evening, as he whittled the edges of a map by lantern light, a knock came at the blacksmith's door. He stood slowly, revolver always within reach. Outside stood Lillian Ash, cleaned up, green shawl draped around her shoulders. Not a bruise left on her that wasn't fading. But her eyes, they were harder now, sharper. "You're not planning on saying goodbye this time?" she asked. He stepped aside. "Didn't think I'd need to." She looked around the shed. "Preacher says you're working." "I am. He says the book you found's bigger than Cain." "It is." Lillian stepped closer. "Then you'll need help." The Hollow Man raised an eyebrow. "You're 17. She met his gaze. "And I know how to shoot. I know what men like Cain do. And I'm not letting you ride into this alone." He looked at her for a long moment. "You sure?" "I lost my fear in that mine," she said, "and I buried what was left beside Cain." He nodded once. "Then we ride at dawn." They left quietly, before the sun touched the spires of Red Morrow's chapel. Preacher Clay stood on the church steps, watching. He didn't call for her to stay, didn't try to stop the Hollow Man. He simply raised a hand and whispered a prayer that they'd come back. Their first stop was Caro Junction, a dry vein of a town built on rail lines and bribes. The man on Cain's list was a foreman named Bexley, who handled the transfers. Paperwork, crates that moved at night and arrived empty. The Hollow Man walked into Bexley's office just after midday. Lillian waited outside, watching the road. Inside, there were no threats, no guns, just a man placing the ledger on Bexley's desk and saying, "We can do this easy." Bexley laughed. Then he reached for a drawer. The Hollow Man didn't blink. Bang. When Lillian stepped inside, she found Bexley slumped against the wall, eyes open, pistol still in hand. "I gave him a choice," the Hollow Man said quietly. Lillian looked down at the ledger. A new name circled, Wade Tennant, a judge. "Where's he?" "Denton Hill," he said, "and he won't go easy either." Lillian walked back to the door. "Good." She turned, eyes steady. "Neither do we." Denton Hill looked peaceful from a distance. White steeples, painted porches, lawmen tipping their hats in daylight. But beneath the church bells and courthouse flags, the rot ran deep. Judge Wade Tennant, Cain's old associate, ran the town like a private kingdom. His court convicted the poor and pardoned the rich. He signed orders that sent innocents to vanish along Cain's routes. The Hollow Man and Lillian arrived just past dusk. They didn't ask for a room. They didn't wait for the law. They walked straight into the courthouse while Tennant was finishing, his bourbon and gloating over a ledger of his own. He looked up, surprised, then smug. "I know who you are," he said. "I know what you are," the Hollow Man replied. Tennant sneered. "You can't just kill your way through a system." "No," the man said. "But I can burn the ledger." He tossed Cain's book onto the judge's desk. Tennant's face blanched as he recognized his own name. 5 times, circled in blood. Lillian lit a match and dropped it. The book burned fast. "Now you've got nothing," Tenet growled. Lillian stepped forward, shotgun raised. "No," she said. "Now you do." They rode out that night, the courthouse smoldering behind them. Word spread fast that a girl and a ghost had torn through Kane's empire, that the Hollow Man was back from the dead, that the names in the ledger were no longer safe. A month later, back in Red Morrow, a letter arrived for Preacher Clay. No return address. Inside, a folded page from Kane's ledger, one name left uncircled, Lillian Ash. Beneath it, in the Hollow Man's handwriting, the last one left, and the only one that mattered. Some say they were seen near the border, chasing a final trail. Others say they built a cabin near Bitter Hollow, planting roots where graves once grew. But no one really knows. All they know is, when the law failed, and the dead were forgotten, and the guilty bought silence, one man rode out of the hollow and brought justice with him.